On the prior training mission, we used the pre-flight checklist as a way to familiarize ourselves with the Mirage's cockpit. Now, on this next mission, we will learn the correct procedure for cold starting the Mirage 2000C, skipping those steps that are not simulated on DCS. The cold start on the Mirage can be performed both using a ground power unit or in a standalone way, by employing the onboard battery. This training will use a ground power unit to be able to perform a normal INS alignment, which takes around 8 minutes without consuming any fuel during this lapse. On a future training we will learn a cold start without employing ground power and with a fast INS alignment, which is possible when the aircraft has not been moved from its last shutdown. If the cockpit is too dark, you can toggle your flashlight with the keys left Alt+L, press spacebar to begin the training. Ramp start with ground electric power. The figure shows the checklist we will follow, with a few deviations like the parking brake at start, and requesting fuel and armament before performing the INS alignment. Parking brake, set. Engage by pulling its handle with a right click. This step ensures the aircraft will not move when aligning its INS. On DCS, when starting a cold Mirage 2000 the ground crew automatically places wheel chocks, making the use of the parking brake optional. Press spacebar to continue. Battery, switch it up to its M position. This will give electrical power to the most essential aircraft equipment. Check position of the transformer rectifier and alternator switches, all must be on, up. The alt yellow caution lights will remain illuminated while the engine alternators are offline. Press spacebar to continue. While not strictly a part of the aircraft procedure, we will contact the airbase's air traffic controller to ask for starting engine clearance, as it will give us an opportunity to learn how to use the radio. The Mirage has two radios available, a green VHF-UHF radio and a red UHF radio, so called because of the knob colors employed for their respective volume controls. At this point, with just battery power enabled, we can only employ the green radio to contact ATC. The red one can only be used once the engine is running or ground power is connected. Turn the green radio on by turning its mode selector to FF, fixed frequency, which is its normal operating mode. The radio executes a 5-second self-test, during which the radio cannot be used. We will learn the advanced functions of this radio on a future training. For now you just need to select preset channel 6, which has been programmed with the air traffic control VHF frequency of this airbase. You can select the channel either by turning the preset selector knob, or by pressing 6 followed by XFR. Good, the display shows FFP006 and the radio frequency repeater bottom line should display 131.2 MHz, which is the VHF frequency of ATC at this airbase. Press spacebar to continue. The Mirage's throttle has a switch that doubles as press-to-talk buttons for either the green or the red radios. The figure shows which actions you should bind to either your joystick or keyboard. To communicate with air traffic control, do a short press, less than 1 second, of the binding you have assigned for the green radio. If you do a long press, the DCS communications menu won't appear. The DCS communications menu should appear. If it doesn't, make sure that the Mirage 2000 Special Option Radio PTT Short Press Toggles menu is ticked. On the DCS communications menu, select F5, ATC, F1, Cairo West, F3, Request Startup. Note that on the frequency repeater, the frequency of the green radio will blink while your pilot speaks, and then its cyan reception LED will lit while receiving the ATC response. Press spacebar once ATC has given you clearance for startup, and press F12 to clear the communications menu. At this early point on the start sequence, we will ask our ground crew to load the armament and fuel needed for our upcoming mission. This is to prevent any aircraft wobble, which mounting ordnance on the aircraft can cause, interfering with the INS alignment. We can contact the crew either by pressing the / key, or with a short press of any PTT binding, even the PTT of the red radio which is at this moment unpowered. Do this now. On the DCS communications menu, select F11, parent menu, F8, ground crew, F1, rearm and refuel. The mission resources overlay should appear, where you can select the amount of internal fuel to be carried, the gun ammo type and quantity, the amount of chaff and flares, the stores to be loaded at each weapon station, and the skin livery to be painted on the aircraft. Configure the aircraft as desired and press OK when finished. Wait until the ground crew finishes the rearm process, which can take several seconds, and then press spacebar to continue the training.
Copy. Rearming complete.
The canopy can be closed at any moment during the cold start, but we will close it now to reduce the noise level of the cockpit during the upcoming engine start. The Mirage's canopy is a single piece of plexiglass hinged at the rear that opens by pivoting upward. Its upward movement is helped by a hydraulic cylinder and has a lock at its upmost position. Unlock the canopy by pulling the canopy lever with a right click. The canopy will lower a little bit as it's unlocked, placing its side handles within the pilot's reach. You can now pull the canopy down using the canopy handles in one of two ways. Left click and hold either handle, then drag the mouse down. The hydraulic cylinder will fight the pull of the canopy, up to a point where it will fall down or stay in position. Or right click either handle, which is a simulation helper that does the pull for you. Now the canopy is fully down but not yet locked. If you want, you can right-click on the canopy ajar stick to place the canopy on a position which provides for some ventilation yet reduces engine noise. If you prefer to fully close the canopy instead, then left-click on the canopy lever twice, once for locking, and once for folding the handle and seal the canopy. The red PCAB warning light will extinguish once the canopy is locked. Good, press spacebar to proceed with the cold start. The lengthiest step of the cold start is the INS alignment. The normal alignment, ALN, alignment normal, takes 8 minutes, which can be reduced if the system still has alignment data from its previous flight. The shortest is a stored heading alignment, ALCM, alignment circap memorize, which takes only 1.5 minutes. On the DCS Mirage 2000C, you can know which alignment type you can use by looking at the pilot sign-out sheet on the aircraft's kneeboard. For this training mission you need to perform an ALN, normal alignment, which takes 8 minutes. To reduce our fuel usage during the cold start, we will perform the INS alignment first, while our jet engine is still unstarted, and perform the engine start only after the alignment is complete. Press spacebar to continue. As the battery does not supply electric power to the INS, we first need to ask our ground crew to connect an electric ground power unit, GPU, to our aircraft, which will provide both AC and DC electric power to the aircraft. Contact the crew either by pressing the / key, or with a short press of any PTT binding. Do this now. On the DCS Communications menu, select F8, Ground Crew, F2, Ground Electric Power, F1, On.
Chief, turn on the ground power.
Copy. Ground power is now
Good.
on.
Now all aircraft systems have electric power, including the INS. Press spacebar to continue the training. The Inertial Navigation System, INS, is an autonomous navigation system that requires no external references, like ground beacons or GPS satellites, to operate. Based on a given initial position, it uses a set of accelerometers and gyroscopes to keep track of the aircraft movement in space and continuously calculates its current position, route, speed, attitude, and altitude. The Mirage 2000C employs a SAGEM INS unit which includes a computer which stores navigation information used by the aircraft, like the flight plan, its waypoints, and information to help the pilot perform navigation or weapon delivery. We will learn most features of the INS on a dedicated navigation training mission. For the cold start we are mostly interested in the alignment of the INS, and on this particular mission we will study the normal alignment only. Press spacebar to continue. The pilot interacts with the INS using two separate panels on the right console. The forwardmost is the PCN, Posta Comandi Navigation, or INS Navigation Control Panel, which we will employ to input the initial position of the aircraft. To the rear is the PSM, Post-Selecteur de Modes, or INS mode selector panel, which controls its operational modes. We will study the capabilities of its data cartridge on a navigation training mission. To place the INS on alignment mode, on the PSM set its operational mode right knob to N, for normal, and its mode selector left knob to VEI, for VAL, standby. On this mode the gyros remain off, but the system is powered and the PCN is available for data entry and visualization. For the INS initial position, we must select an INS waypoint that contains the current aircraft's coordinates and altitude. On this mission we have no such waypoint, so we will have to manually enter one. The aircraft initial coordinates and altitude can be found on the pilot sign-out sheet of the kneeboard, which you can show up by pressing right Shift plus K. Do it now. The kneeboard overlay can be moved by dragging its top border with the mouse, and it can be resized by dragging its bottom right corner. Place it where it doesn't obstruct your view of the PCN panel, and page forward until the sign-out sheet is visible. Press spacebar to continue. The INS navigation computer can hold 20 waypoints, numbered 01 to 20, each composed of a latitude, a longitude, and an altitude. Waypoint 00 can't be used as a normal waypoint, instead it always contains the coordinates of the aircraft's current position. Make sure to have the parameter knob on the LG position, in order to have its coordinates displayed. You can see that the present position coordinates shown on the display do not match those shown on the kneeboard for our current location. This simply means that the INS do not currently know our true location. We will need to enter a waypoint for our initial position. Any waypoint can be used, but for convenience we will use waypoint 20, so that it doesn't interfere with the waypoints of our flight plan. Press spacebar to continue. Waypoints can be selected in one of two modes, prep, for preparation or setup. Selecting a waypoint in prep mode allows visualization and editing of its parameters. Dest, for destination or navigation. This mode selects a waypoint for navigation to it. Its parameters can't be altered on this mode. So, to enter data for waypoint 20, we must first select prep mode by pressing its button. Once pressed, the button lights up. Next use the numeric keypad to type its number, which is always 2 digits, from 01 to 20. So, for waypoint 20 type 20. Good, waypoint 20 is selected, and its data is displayed, but as this waypoint currently contains no data, zeros are shown. The prep button turns off, but we are still on prep mode and waypoint data can be entered or edited as needed. Press spacebar to continue. To enter coordinates for a waypoint you must have selected it in prep mode, which we have already done for waypoint 20, and then select the parameter we wish to edit. For latitude and longitude the parameter to select is LG, which we have also already done. Next, we need to select which of the top visors we want to enter, the left one for latitude, or the right one for longitude. Press either of the left side plus or minus keys to select the left visor, or press either of the right side plus or minus for the right visor. To enter the latitude first, press either of the highlighted keys. Both the insert and the effacement keys will light up, indicating that the PCN is in edit mode. EFF for effacement is used to cancel the input when a wrong key has been pressed. INS for insertion is used to save the input into the INS. As the data type is a latitude coordinate, N and S are displayed on the left visor, reminding you to press 2 for north or 8 for south. Referring to our kneeboard information, the latitude we want to enter is 30 degrees north, 06 minutes, and 0.567 seconds, so type 2 for north, followed by 3, 0, 0, 6, 5, 6, and 7. For LG the displayed data is shorter than the stored data. The PCN will display up to 1/10 of a minute while the INS can store up to 1,000 of a minute. In order to input full coordinates, the hundreds and thousands of a minute needs to be typed in even if the PCN does not react to input. Press INS once you have typed the whole coordinate. Both the insert and efface keys will light off, indicating that the data insertion has been completed. Next, to enter the longitude press either of the right side plus or minus keys. Once again both insert and efface will light up, confirming that the PCN is in edit mode. As the data type is a longitude coordinate, E and W are displayed, reminding you to press 6 for east or 4 for west, as needed. Referring to the kneeboard, the longitude we need to enter is 30 degrees east, 56 minutes, 0.018 seconds, so type 6 for east, followed by 0, 3, 0, 5, 6, 0, 1, and 8. Note that a leading 0 is needed. Again, to input the full coordinate, the hundreds and thousands of a minute needs to be typed blind. Press the insert button once you have typed the whole coordinate. We also need to enter the altitude of the waypoint, or the INS alignment will be inaccurate. So, turn the parameter knob to the Alt position, altitude. The top visors will now display altitude instead of geographic coordinates. The left value is the altitude in feet, while the right visor shows the altitude in meters. You can enter the altitude on either visor, and the computer will convert it properly for the other visor. As our kneeboard shows the altitude in meters, we will use the right visor. Press either the plus or minus keys of the right side. As the altitude data can be positive or negative, for altitudes below sea level, a plus and a minus are shown, reminding to press 3 or 9 as needed. Referring once again to the kneeboard, the altitude we need to enter is 136 meters, so type 3 for a positive value, followed by 1, 3, and 6. Note that this time no leading zeros are needed, simply press insert once you have typed the whole value. Good, note that the computer converted the entered altitude into feet, for the left side visor. This completes the creation of our initial position prep waypoint. You can now close the kneeboard if it's still open, with right shift plus K. Press spacebar to continue the training. Now that we have a prep waypoint with the correct initial coordinates of our aircraft, we can start the INS alignment by turning the PSM mode knob to its ALN position. Turn also the operational mode knob to STS, status, to check the alignment progression on the visors of the PSN panel. Once the PSM is in align mode, on the PSN visor the ALN light will blink and the VAL key will light up, indicating that this button can be used to start the alignment. Click on the VAL key to start the INS alignment process, using as starting position the coordinates of the selected prep waypoint, which in this case is waypoint 20. Note that the ALN light is now steady, which indicates that the INS is aligning, and the VAL key has reverted to half lit. At this time, you could switch to another prep waypoint without disturbing the alignment, for example to enter other waypoints for our flight plan, but note that the PSM mode knob can't be moved or the alignment will abort. The rightmost number on the top display of the PSN is the alignment status, where 100 represents an unaligned Euro platform, and 00 represents a fully aligned one, as shown on the figure at left. Alignment phase 1 consists of roughly setting up the platform horizontally and in azimuth, heating it up to operating temperature, and spinning up the gyroscopes. This phase lasts about 35 seconds until status 99 is reached. Phase 2 records and corrects the horizontal and azimuth bias of the platform. It lasts about 20 seconds, and it's performed several times. Phase 3 begins at status 92 and consists of a finer version of Phase 2, it lasts about 80 seconds. Up until status 53, the ALN status light is steady, to indicate that the alignment can't be interrupted. At that point the ALN light will turn off and the PRET light will flash, signaling that now the alignment process can be interrupted. The interrupted normal alignment, ALNI for alignment normal interrompu, also called fast alignment, ALR for alignment rapide, is a normal alignment that is stopped before its completion. This alignment lasts between 4 and 8 minutes and results in a drift rate between 4 and 2 nautical miles per hour. To choose this kind of INS alignment, simply turn the PSM mode selector to the nav position. However, don't do this right now, as for this mission we want the lower drift that a full alignment provides. The normal alignment, ALN for alignment normal, is required at each cold start if the aircraft has been moved since the last time it stopped. This alignment lasts 8 minutes and results in a drift rate of about 0.7 nautical miles per hour. Press spacebar to continue. While the INS alignment is taking place, we can proceed with some checklist steps that don't disturb the alignment. External navigation lights, set them to bright, fort. Emergency attitude and heading switch, set to auto, mid-position, and uncage the backup ADI. To uncage, click and hold the mouse cursor over the backup ADI adjustment knob and then use the mouse wheel to move the aircraft symbol until it's just over the horizon line. Press spacebar to continue. HUD power switch, set to on, M. The VTH will turn on after a short delay, during which the system will heat up to operating temperature. The test position of this switch is not simulated. PCTH radar altimeter switch, set to test and then to on, M, and set the HUD altitude display selector to the H position, to have both barometric and radar altitude displayed. Press spacebar to continue. Radar display, VTB, power switch, set to on, M. The VTB will turn on after a few seconds delay, during which the display will warm up to operating temperature. DTOT fuel amount, set. On the fuel control panel of the real aircraft, the DTOT counter displays the total fuel available to the aircraft, including external tanks. The DTOT is manually set by the pilot or ground crew using the DTOT switch. The engine fuel consumption is subtracted to the displayed value to obtain the updated fuel quantity. This means that this display can be inaccurate if it has been set incorrectly. Important, for the DTOT switch to work as described, it is important to have the automatic fuel DTOT cheat disabled, as shown on the figure. On DCS, at mission start the DTOT will be set to the total fuel quantity by the ground crew, but it won't be updated when refueling on the ground or in the air. On the DCS kneeboard, the pilot's Sinai sheet page contains a refueling section that is updated each time the aircraft is refueled. Bingo fuel, set. Adjust the drum counters to set an alarm to sound when the internal fuel remaining falls below the bingo counter value. For example, set it to 1,200 kilograms. Press spacebar to continue. Cockpit lights test switch, test both 1 and 2 position, by successively clicking and holding the left and right mouse buttons. Electric pump switch, move it to its test momentary position, then release to auto. Check that the hydro S red warning light is off. This switch enables the backup electrical hydraulic pump, which automatically starts when the pressure in the hydraulic system 2 falls below 160 bars. Press spacebar to continue. Set the radio navigation equipment to the departing airbase frequencies. On this mission it is Cairo West. VOR mode knob, power on the system by turning the highlighted knob ring to M, mark, tune the station frequency, for this airbase tune 111.50 MHz. The frequency itself will determine if it is a VOR or an ILS station. To set the frequency, use your mouse wheel over these knobs, the left one for tuning the integer part and the right one for the decimal part. Test the VOR receiver with a right click and hold on the highlighted knob ring. Observe the yellow deviation needles on the main ADI, they should move to the lower right test position. Next repeat the test with a left click and hold, to select the HG position, where the deviation needles move to the top left test position. TACAN mode, power on the system by turning the highlighted knob to its transmit receive position, TR, where the system will provide both bearing and range to the ground station. Tune the TACAN channel, for this airbase select the 114 X-ray station. To set the channel, use your mouse wheel over these knobs, the left one for tuning the hundreds and tens and the right one for the units. The left ring is used to select the X-ray or the Yankee band. You can check the TACAN indications by selecting TAC on the navigation indicator. Good, the large needle will point towards the TACAN ground station, which is ahead of us and slightly to the right, while the distance window should display around 1.2 nautical miles to the station. Press spacebar to continue. You will know that the INS normal alignment is complete, if the INS status reaches 0 and the PRET light on its visor is steady, no longer flashing. Press spacebar if the alignment has finished, else wait a bit until it does. Good, Now that the INS alignment process has finished, set the PSM mode selector to nav, to place the INS in navigation mode. The operational mode knob can now be moved to its normal, N, position, as the status, STS, position is only useful during the alignment. We are now ready to start the engine. Quickly check two items: the position of the TRN, Alt-1 and Alt-2 switches, all must be on, up. The Alt yellow lights will remain on until the engine alternators are online. Ensure that the throttle is in the cutoff position and not the idle position. Starting the engine with the throttle in the idle position will lead to an engine overtemperature and even to a fire, if not immediately aborted. Throttle not at cutoff. Check throttle lever position and ensure it has been calibrated on Windows. You can abort the startup by pressing the throttle cutoff button, then set the ignition ventilation switch to its vent central position and wait for the jet fuel starter to automatically shut down. Press spacebar to begin the engine start procedure. Fuel shutoff valve switch, set to open, to its right position, cover closed. The left position closes the valve, interrupting fuel supply to the engine. Boost fuel pump switches, set both left and right pumps to its on position, M. Check that the yellow BPG and BPD caution lights are off. Starter button cover, open with a right click, the starter fuel pump switch will move to on. Start button, left click on it and hold for 2 seconds, to activate the engine starter. Monitor the engine RPM and the TT7 temperature. Once RPM goes over 10%, move the throttle lever beyond idle, then move it back. At 45% RPM, the JFS will disengage and turn off. RPM should peak at 60% then stabilize between 48 and 51%. On the alarm panel, no warning or caution light should be on except park, hydro S, cockpit pressure, anemmo, alpha, and decal. Press spacebar once the engine has stabilized. Alarm panel, confirm the red while and T7 lights are off, indicating that the oil pressure is now normal and the T7 engine temperature is under 850 degrees Celsius. Check also that the yellow lights Hydro 1 and 2 are also off, indicating that the hydraulic pressure of the Hydro systems 1 and 2 is normal, above 195 bar. Press spacebar to continue. Now that the jet engine is running and its electric generator is active, we can ask ground crew to disconnect the ground power unit, GPU, from our aircraft. Contact the crew either by pressing the / key, or with a short press of any PTT binding. Do this now. On the DCS Communications menu, select F8, Ground Crew, F2, Ground Electric Power, F2, off.
Chief, turn off the ground power.
Copy. Ground power is now
Good.
off.
Check that the yellow alternator 1 and 2 warning lights have gone off. Press spacebar to continue. Emergency hydraulic pump, switch to its mid position, auto. Check that the red Hydro S warning light goes off. Press spacebar to continue. IFF master mode knob, set to its standby position, SBY, to start the warm-up of the system. Radar power mode knob, set to its silent position, SIL, where the radar executes the selected search pattern, but it is not radiating. External lights, set the anti-collision light switch to the bright position, FORT, and set the formation light switch as desired. Press spacebar to continue. Flight stick and rudders, wipe the controls a few times before conducting the fly-by-wire tests, to warm up the hydraulics. The flight's controls include 4 elevons for pitch and roll control and 1 rudder, all controlled by an electro-hydraulic servo connected to the 2 hydraulic circuits. Good, the flight surface's servos are now ready. Press spacebar to continue with the fly-by-wire and autopilot tests. CDVE, which is the French acronym for fly-by-wire, test switch, before each flight perform at least the short version of the test, by selecting the C position of the switch with a left click. The test position performs a longer test. While the test is running, the panel's red light next to the switch will flash and the flight surface's indicators will move. Audio beeps can also be heard. If the test is successful, the red light will go off and the green light will illuminate. Return the test switch to its center position and close its cover. After the test, press the master warning light to acknowledge it. Autopilot test switch. In the same way we will test the autopilot system, by lifting its cover and selecting the M position of the highlighted switch. During the test, the red and green lights of the panel will flash and the red AP warning light will turn on. The autopilot panel buttons will also illuminate according to the test steps. If the test is successful, the red light will go off and the green light will illuminate. On the autopilot control panel, the altitude hold mode and automatic approach push buttons will keep flashing after the test. Press the AP engagement push button to reset them. After the test, press the master warning light to acknowledge it. Air brakes, test them using the HOTAS command and checking the configuration panel. Wing slats, test them by setting the slat switch to the sortis position, then the auto position. Pitot heat, switch it to the on position and close the cover. The warning sound switch, set to on, to enable the audio warnings. Fly-by-wire loadout configuration, check. The config alarm warns the pilot that the current weapons loadout does not match the fly-by-wire mode switch. The charges mode must be used with any of the following loads: a non-empty centerline droppable fuel tank, any wing droppable fuel tank, or any bomb or rockets pod. Parking brake. Release, with a left click on its handle, the park alarm should go off. Alarms panel, check that all caution lights are now extinguished, though the PCAB light may remain lit if the canopy has not yet been closed. Press spacebar to finish the training. Good, this finishes the Mirage cold start with a full INS alignment and employing ground electric power. On a separate training mission we will do a faster cold start, with a memory alignment for the INS and using just the aircraft's battery. Press spacebar to exit the mission.